graveyard shift at the old diner asterisk. For some, the night brings peace. For others, it brings the unknown. Daniel thought he knew the quiet solitude of his graveyard shift at Pop's Diner, a place frozen in time, where coffee brewed endless, and the only company was the hum of the refrigerator. But sometimes when the world sleeps, other things wake up. Things that demand a table, but were never truly alive. Asterisk Daniel ran a damp cloth over the worn Formica countertop, the familiar scent of stale coffee and disinfectant hanging heavy in the air. It was 3 a.m., and Pop's Diner, a relic from the 1950s off a forgotten stretch of old Route 66, was utterly silent. His shift was usually uneventful: brew coffee, wipe down tables, maybe read a few chapters of a book. The occasional trucker or lone traveler would pull off the highway, but tonight, nothing. Just the rhythmic buzz of the ancient neon sign outside. Asterisk walked past the empty booths, their red vinyl seats gleaming faintly in the dim overhead lights. The jukebox, perpetually stuck on a classic rock station, was silent tonight, a rare occurrence. Daniel preferred the quiet. It let him think. But tonight, the quiet felt different, thicker, like a presence. Asterisk. He was pouring himself another cup of coffee when he heard it. A faint clink. He froze, listening. It sounded like ceramic hitting glass. He slowly turned his head towards the booth's asterisk. One of the sugar dispensers, the heavy glass kind, was tilted on table 7. As he watched, it slowly, almost deliberately, toppled over, spilling sugar onto the checkered tablecloth. Asterisk Daniel's blood ran cold. He'd been the only one in the diner. He walked towards the table, his eyes scanning the empty booths around it. Nothing. He picked up the dispenser, his hands trembling slightly. Just the building settling, he muttered, trying to convince himself. Asterisk, he cleaned up the sugar, trying to shake off the unease. As he straightened up, a cold gust of wind swept through the diner. Despite all the doors and windows being tightly shut, a shiver ran down his spine. Then, the jukebox suddenly roared to life. Not a familiar classic rock tune, but a distorted, staticky sound like a broken record playing a mournful off-key melody. Asterisk Daniel's heart hammered against his ribs. He fumbled for his phone, but his hands were shaking too much to dial. He darted his eyes around the diner. And then he saw it. Asterisk in the reflection of the large window facing the highway. In the furthest booth, table 12, a shadowy figure sat. It was slumped over, its head resting on the table, as if asleep. Daniel blinked. It was still there. He couldn't make out any features, just a dark amorphous shape. It radiated a profound sense of cold. Asterisk, he slowly, carefully, began to back away towards the kitchen, his eyes glued to the reflection. The music from the jukebox grew louder, more distorted, sounding like a tortured scream. As he reached the kitchen door, the figure in the reflection slowly, unnaturally, began to sit upright. Asterisk, it was tall, incredibly thin. Its head slowly lifted, and Daniel could feel its gaze, a suffocating weight, even through the window's reflection. He didn't wait. He burst through the kitchen door, fumbled with the back lock, and ran out into the cool night air, not daring to look back. Asterisk, he never returned to Pop's Diner. He heard later that the place finally shut down for good. But sometimes, when he drives past forgotten diners on desolate roads, he wonders about table 12, and he can almost hear the distorted melody of that old jukebox playing its mournful tune to an unseen, eternally hungry patron. They say home is where the heart is, but what if a building has a heart of its own? Or rather, a cold, empty chamber where something lingers. For Maria, a night concierge at an old, upscale apartment building, her job was to ensure security. But some residents you can't see on any roster. Some residents never left. Asterisk Maria smoothed down her uniform, her eyes scanning the dimly lit lobby of the Astoria, an old Art Deco apartment building in downtown Chicago. Her shift as the night concierge was usually quiet. Most residents were asleep or out on the town. Her job involved monitoring the security cameras, signing for late-night packages, and occasionally letting in a forgotten key holder. Apartment 4B was always a source of quiet curiosity for her. It had been vacant for years since its elderly owner passed away without any living relatives. But sometimes Maria would swear she saw lights in it. It started subtly. A brief flicker of light on the security camera feed for the 4th floor, lasting only a second. She'd rewind, convinced she'd imagined it. But sometimes the flicker was there. She'd double-check the maintenance log. No one was scheduled to be in 4B. Then came the sounds. Faint at first, carried through the ventilation system into the lobby, a soft dragging sound like furniture being moved. A distant clink of glass. Maria would check the cameras for the 4th floor again, but the corridor remained empty, silent. She'd even gone up herself a few times, armed with her flashlight and a growing sense of unease. The door to 4 Bites was always locked, the silence. Behind it, absolute. One particularly foggy night. As the city lights blurred outside, Maria was startled by the faint ring of the intercom from apartment 4B. Her heart leaped. No one was supposed to be there. She stared at the flashing light. On the panel, hesitant. After a long moment, she pressed the talk button. Apartment 4B. This is the lobby. Can I help you? She asked, her voice a little shaky. Silence. Then, a low guttural static filled the line, followed by a faint, wet gurgling sound. It lasted only a few seconds, then cut out. Maria slammed her hand on the panel, trying to restart the connection. Nothing. She rewound the security camera feed for the 4th floor. It showed nothing unusual, just the empty, silent corridor. But she knew what she had heard. Over the next few weeks, the occurrences grew bolder. The lights in 4B would stay on for longer periods on the camera feed. The sounds became clearer. Distinct footsteps, a woman's muffled cough, the faint tinkle of a music box. Maria began to avoid looking at the 4B camera feed directly. One night, she received a delivery. A large, old-fashioned wooden chest, addressed to the resident, apartment 4B. Maria stared at the label, her blood turning to ice. She knew. The original owner had passed years ago. There was no one else. She signed for the package, her hand trembling. The delivery guy simply grunted and left. Maria stared at the large chest in the lobby, an oppressive aura radiating from it. She couldn't leave it there. It had to go to 4B** with a heavy heart and an even heavier sense of dread. Maria managed to get the chest onto the service elevator. She rode it up alone, the silence of the old building pressing in on her. When the elevator doors opened onto the 4th floor, a chillingly sweet floral scent hit her. It was the scent of old potpourri, the same kind the previous elderly resident of 4B used to favor. The light under the door of 4 Bites was blazing, a bright, steady glow. And from within, she could clearly hear the faint, melancholic melody of a music box playing. Maria stared at the chest, then at the glowing door of 4B. She knew she couldn't leave the chest here. Slowly, with immense effort, she pushed the chest towards the door of apartment 4B. As it neared the door, the music from within suddenly stopped. The light under the door died. The hallway was plunged into cold silence. Maria dropped the chest and stumbled back into the elevator, slamming the close button repeatedly. As the doors began to shut, she caught a glimpse of the door to 4B. It was now slightly ajar. And in the tiny crack, she saw something. A pale, slender hand, adorned with an old-fashioned ring, slowly reaching out, beckoning her inside. She screamed as the doors shut. Maria never returned to the Astoria. But sometimes when she's alone, she still hears the distant tinkle of a music box, and she wonders what secrets or what souls are truly held within the walls of apartment 4B. Some jobs require vigilance, others simply being present. But what happens when what you're watching is watching you back? Mark took the night shift at the old industrial warehouse, thinking it would be easy money. But easy money sometimes comes at a cost. A cost paid in fear and the chilling realization that you're never truly alone in the dark. Mark had just started his new job as a night security guard at the old Henderson Industrial Warehouse on the outskirts of Dayton, Ohio. The place was massive, filled with rows of towering shelves stacked with crates, machinery covered with tarps, and an eerie silence that swallowed sound. His duties were simple: patrol every 2 hours, check all doors and windows, and make sure no one was breaking in. He often felt like the only living soul for miles. First few weeks were uneventful. A monotonous rhythm of walking, checking, and the occasional coffee break. But then, he started noticing it. A fleeting glimpse of a figure in his peripheral vision, always at the very edge of his sight, usually down one of the long, narrow aisles between the shelves. When he'd turn his head directly, it would be gone. He dismissed it as fatigue, or the natural trickery of shadows in the vast warehouse. But the sightings became more frequent. It was always tall, impossibly thin, and incredibly dark, darker than any shadow should be. It seemed to absorb light, making the already dim aisles even gloomier where it appeared. He started calling it the flicker in his head, because it would just appear and disappear like a faulty light bulb. One night, as he was walking down aisle 7, he felt an intense cold spot, even though the warehouse temperature was regulated. He slowly turned his head. There it was. Not in his periphery, but standing about 50 feet down the aisle, partially obscured by a stack of wooden pallets. The flicker. It was perfectly still, its form an elongated, wavering silhouette. Mark froze, his heart pounding. He shone his powerful flashlight directly at it. The beam of light seemed to pass through it, illuminating the shelves behind. It was like looking at a hole in the air, a void. The flicker didn't move. It just stood there, observing him. A wave of primal terror washed over Mark. He backed away slowly, never taking his eyes off the figure. When he reached the end of the aisle, he spun around and ran to the security office, locking the door behind him. He spent the rest of the shift glued to the security monitors, but the flicker never appeared on camera. Over the next few weeks, the flicker grew bolder. It would appear closer to him during patrols. He'd hear faint, dragging sounds behind him, or the subtle shift of air as if something vast was moving. He started bringing his large, trusty flashlight, a baseball bat, and even a pocket knife to his shifts. One particularly tense night, as he was about to sign off for the morning, he felt an intense, frigid blast of air right behind his neck. His blood ran cold. He didn't dare turn around immediately. He could feel a profound, silent presence directly behind him, looming. Then, a faint, sibilant whisper brushed against his ear, so soft it was almost a thought. It sounded like dry leaves skittering across concrete. You're not alone. Mark screamed, a raw, guttural sound. He spun around, swinging the baseball bat wildly. It connected with nothing but air. The office was empty. The door was still locked. He stood there, panting, the silence pressing in on him. He picked up his things and practically sprinted out of the warehouse, never looking back. He quit the job that morning without giving notice. Mark never saw the flicker again, but the memory haunts him. Every time he's in a large, empty space, or catches something moving in his peripheral vision, a cold dread washes over him. He knows that some shadows aren't just an absence of light. Some shadows are watching. And they remind you that even when you think you're alone, you might just be mistaken.